Hall of Famer, legend from the San Diego Padres, member of the Baseball Hall of Fame, inducted in 2007, first ballot Hall of Famer. He batted .338, had 3,141 hits, wasn't known for his power, but did have 135 home runs, 8-time National League batting champion, 15-time All-Star, and 5-time Gold Glove Award winner Tony Gwynn passed away yesterday at the age of 54 to a battle of cancer. He said it was largely to his throat cancer. He was currently a San Diego State coach, baseball coach over there, as he had strong ties with San Diego as he went to college there and continued his ties growing up. As I mentioned, he passed away. You told me that you interviewed him a couple of times. What type of, not only player, but what type of person was Tony Gwynn?
Well, I think if you ask anybody in baseball or anybody who covered Tony Gwynn, they would tell you that, it's easy to throw around when people died the platitudes that they were really, really, really a nice guy. Well, in the case of Tony Gwynn, he really was a nice man. He never, that I know of, declined an interview with people in the press. He never didn't have time to sign an autograph. He never didn't have time to have a picture taken. He always was, over the course of time, I probably interviewed Tony Gwynn, easily 25, 30 times. And he was a joy to talk to. I think few people know that he and Ted Williams were good friends, which would only make sense because they were probably the two best pure hitters in the history of the game. As a matter of fact, when Ted Williams retired in 1960, the person who pretty much took up the mantle for him was Tony Gwynn. There hasn't been a better hitter in baseball consistently since Ted Williams than Tony Gwynn. There hasn't been one since Tony Gwynn who's been even close on a consistent basis as he has. So he was an incredible gentleman. The last time I actually sat down and interviewed him was prior to his induction with Cal Ripken into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. And the ironic thing, and if you know Tony, it shouldn't surprise you, was he talked more about Cal getting into the Hall of Fame than he did talk about himself. He really didn't think that what he did was that special. And a lot of it was because it came so naturally to him. For you and I, it was a tremendous accomplishment. For Tony Gwynn, it was what he could do. I mean, he played the game. He took less money, to play in San Diego because he was a San Diego guy. He could have on a number of occasions, scored huge dollars on the free agent market, but he figured, I know what I need to live a comfortable life, and he ironically like Cal Ripken. They were two guys who literally played every game of their professional career in their hometown or close to their hometown, and enjoyed the fact that that's what they were going to do. So Tony Gwynn will be missed for a number of reasons, not the least of which is his ability to tell stories, his ability to just be a genuinely nice guy and an ambassador for the game. And I think that Tony Gwynn and Cal Ripken, ironically going into the Hall of Fame at the same time, truly proved that you can have class and you can do things the right way, and you may not make all the headlines, but at the end of the day, when you pass, people will remember what a phenomenal person and player you were. And I think that combination of person and player is something we seem, unfortunately, to get further and further away from in sports these days. Hopefully, people will think of Tony Gwynn and perhaps begin to model themselves after him. And he has a tremendous amount of kids that go through that that great San Diego State program. And people forget that once again, Tony Gwynn had a great broadcasting career, but he decided he wanted to be the head coach of San Diego State baseball, and so he gave that up. So again, because he had a love for baseball, because he had a love to teach baseball, he gave up a lucrative broadcasting career to take a relatively small paying job as the head coach of San Diego State baseball.
Rookie wide receivers, and the big names that came out of this draft was Sammy Watkins, Benjamin, who we just talked about, Marquise Lee, Odom Beckham Jr. over there in New York, Jordan Matthews, and Mike Evans on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of all these wide receivers, if you could pick one of them, and if you had the choice of reaching for them, we'll start with just a standard league and then move on to Dynasty. Which of those rookies would you take first in a standard league?
It would be a toss-up. Well, since we went over Benjamin, I'm finding more people are going more towards the Jordan Matthews. Let me go for the reasons I believe that's happening, that he's being reached for more than anybody of that group that you've given me. First of all, it's the up-tempo Chip Kelly Philadelphia Eagles scheme. And he seems to possess a talent that they really didn't have, nice size, speed, smarts, pattern running. He presents it all, which they didn't have before. And I think Chip Kelly is really going to mold him into a point per reception magnet. He could easily provide a wide receiver 3 upside, actually be wide receiver 2 upside if things go well. And, just take into consideration the injury history of some of the Philadelphia Eagles skill players they have right now. He's going to see the field. That's also going to be guaranteed. So if you're looking for total upside, and if you're going to do a little bit of a reach, I definitely go with Jordan Matthews. As I mentioned, we spoke about Benjamin. Evans worries me. I mean, they had the big guys down in Tampa Bay, but again, new quarterback, new scheme. He's going to get red zone looks. When are you going to put him in, though? That's going to be the question.
And looking at Dynasty, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Beckham, Coughlin hates rookies, and Liam Watkins are probably dealing with inconsistent quarterbacks.
And are you looking at this differently in Dynasty leagues, or is it pretty much the same?
Pretty much, well, actually, no, I like the longevity of Mike Evans. He was actually my number 1 Dynasty wide receiver coming in. I just don't think you're going to see the bang for the buck this year, but if you have someone to stash and hold, I do believe that he is going to be the one 2-3 years down the road. He's really going to make a name for himself.
Is this really the last time where we see the big three play together in Miami?
I think so. If you look at the kind of cap situation that they're under, the way Pat Riley and the front office of Miami has really put together this team, we all knew this summer was coming, so you had to have pieces already in place to push forward into next year if these guys are going to stick around or for them to want to stick around. And obviously last year with the loss of, you lost some role players you really used pretty well last year. You lost Mike Miller, and of course he was instrumental in the finals last year, but then everybody got a year older. Battier, Allen, and those guys are going to be gone. And I think the big three kind of look at it like, we gave it a good run. We gave it 4 years. I've heard reports that LeBron is going to have to be convinced in a closed office meeting that Pat Riley needs to talk him into staying, and that's because they've done such a poor job of putting everybody else around them. The Spurs won this finals by about 70 points in their 4 wins, and so if that doesn't signify the end of something that's not working, I don't know what does. It's a great thing to make it to 4 straight finals, but the results aren't there in the end for Miami, and I think they're going to have to break it up.
It's quite a remarkable run by Miami, as they've reached the finals in 4 straight seasons, won 2 of those finals, but do you have a really hard time to believe that Bosh, Wade, and LeBron will opt out of their contracts next year, despite receiving $20 million in their contracts?
Yeah, it makes it look a little outrageous. I think Wade stays. I don't know if anybody else wants to take a chance with his defense. His age shows so much, and just the pounding he's taken over the years. for Miami. So I don't know if anybody else is going to offer him the kind of contract that Miami can. I think he stays. I think Chris Bosh kind of misses, as much as he is kind of like a team, one for all for one kind of guy, it seems, with Miami. I think he misses the spotlight. I think he really misses being that go-to guy, and he was that for so long with Toronto. So I think he's gone, and I think in the end LeBron leaves. I don't know where he's going to go, but I don't see him. It's almost with Dwayne Wade is the linchpin in all of this. He was 4 years ago when they made the decision to go down there, and he is now. And I don't think he's capable of winning a championship with them together. I think it's the big two. I don't think they kept Wade supposedly healthy for 28 games, or out for 28 games to keep him healthy, and then he turns out this performance. So I think he's done, and if he was healthy, I think it might change things, but the fact that he's not where he needs to be really makes a difference.
Latest All-Star voting results were announced on Monday. And right now, your American League starting lineup includes 2 players who are caught with PEDs. That include Blue Jays outfielder Melky Cabrera and Orioles designated hitter Nelson Cruz, as I mentioned, who were 2 former players who were banned for taking PEDs. Are you surprised at all by this fan voting seems like they're accepting former players who took PEDs?
Oh, absolutely. I'm kind of over the PED issue in baseball. They screwed it up. They never got it right. What are you going to do? Do you stop watching the game? Do you boycott it? I've known a lot of people that have. I am not as big a baseball fan. I grew up a baseball fan. I grew up a diehard baseball fan. My grandfather was born in Brooklyn. My dad was born in L.A. We followed the Dodgers. Became huge Diamondback fans because I was born here in Arizona, and was a die-hard baseball fan my whole life. I grew up playing baseball. I played some semi-pro ball, and baseball was my sport. And I find it third or fourth on my list of must-watch TV nowadays for sports. I really couldn't care less because I don't trust the game. I don't appreciate the way it's played on a daily basis by the majority of the baseball players, and I can understand, though, because of the system in place, why the players do what they do. I would have taken the steroids. I would have cheated. I would have done what a lot of these guys did. I'm not sure I would have taken the approach of a Barry Bonds, where you continually deny it and you just do it to try and blow away the record books. But to get paid to play the sport that I love playing for as long as they could at a high level, I would do it. And baseball was not doing anything to stop them. If anything, they were doing things to encourage it. So I can't blame the players for the performance-enhancing drugs. I can blame baseball, and I can blame the fans for not demanding more. But in all honesty, baseball has gotten away somehow with ignoring the fans and the destruction of their sport. Their sport was America's pastime. It's not even, it's third now behind basketball, for goodness sakes. The only reason it's not behind hockey is because nobody can pronounce their name. We're getting to that point in baseball.
Yeah.
So it's like they're so far behind basketball and football for a sport that 20 years ago was number one and is now way, way, way behind at third. And really, you got to put them up there with like NASCAR now for national audience. And that's bad. I mean, I'm a huge NASCAR. I'll watch NASCAR, I'll watch football, and I'll watch basketball before I watch baseball for the most part.
Jimmy Graham, tight end for the New Orleans Saints, is fighting for the right to be paid as a wide receiver. The grievance hearing over Graham's franchise tag wrapped up on Wednesday, and a decision is expected to be heard about in about a week or so. The NFL plans to use Graham's own Twitter account in the battle, an account of which he identifies himself as a tight end in the NFL. Stephen Burbank, the arbitrator in this hearing, heard arguments from the NFL Players Association and the NFL Management Council to determine whether Graham should be officially labeled as a tight end or wide receiver for franchise tag purposes. What's really at stake is whether the Saints are required to pay Graham a one-year franchise tag salary of $7 million or $5 million more at $12 million if he's called a wide receiver. Now, looking at this ruling, how does this really affect future negotiations for players who are in the current position as Graham?
Well, the CBA that they signed in 2011 included some of the old franchise language, which was the language that was created when the franchise system was put in place with the previous CBA. So I think some of that is kind of antiquated right now. And let's say, Jimmy Graham's former teammate Darren Sproles, for instance. Now, he caught more passes than he had rushing attempts last year. Does that make him a wide receiver, or does that make him a running back? Who knows? I mean, the way teams classify players on a roster and the way they utilize them often are different. And yet, so there's a gray area there. I mean, Graham essentially was detached from the line, i.e. either in the slot or split out wide, 2/3 of the time. 2 out of 3 plays, he was not in a traditional tight end formation. Now, that said, we see, tight ends go in motion. We see them offset. We see them sometimes line up as fullbacks in the backfield. We see them out wide in the slot. So teams are more creative with players of Graham's athletic ability these days. Now, that said, he's always been listed as a tight end, and I've never heard blue from his camp about, being listed otherwise. Like you said, his own Twitter account, he refers to himself as New Orleans Saints tight end. So, this one, I tell you what, the players are really, really confident. Talking to them and feeling them out, they feel like they're going to win this thing. To me, I'm not so sure it's cut and dry because he's gone to Pro Bowls as a tight end. I'm not sure you could call him one of the 10 best wide receivers in the league. And I'm not sure the Saints would have franchised him if he was, somehow designated as a tight end.
And looking at the last few years or even last 5 years, the tight end position has really evolved over the last seasons. Really, Bill Belichick has been the creator of that with drafting 2 tight ends with Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski a few years back and really having everybody focus on tight end-driven leagues. But has the definition of what a tight end been really changed because of where they line up on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, and obviously teams have used, the 2 tight end formations, whether it's the 22 personnel or the 12 personnel, for years. I mean, Bill Parcells was a big proponent of it. He drafted Anthony Fasano to be Jason Witten's sidekick. Now, it didn't end up working out there for Fasano, but point being, I mean, Bill kind of is the guy who's, utilized it the most recently with the most success. And obviously Hernandez did a lot of different things. Gronkowski has done a lot of different things in terms of where they've lined up, what their assignments are. I mean, I think the language in the CBA needs to be, readdressed or revised or something because I do think it's a little antiquated. And you're talking about more about the position that they're lined up at versus what they're listed at in a roster or something like that. So, there perhaps needs to be some kind of addendum to that. But given the current state of the relations between the owners and the players, I'm not sure they're going to be able to get too cozy on this thing and make something happen that would affect anything before the next labor deal, which is probably, 4 or 5 years away.
Yeah, I just hope they don't impact it too much because I have Graham as my tight end for fantasy football. So.
Well, think about it. Here's the real question. I mean, think about how much fantasy football would change.
Oh, a lot.
Graham as a wide receiver. I mean, and people go crazy about this stuff. So that would be a huge, huge deal for fantasy football, and it's crazy to think about.
Player who's not happy because of the not winning ways is Kevin Love over in the Minnesota Timberwolves. His sweepstakes is just getting started for him as the Warriors have offered Klay Thompson and David Lee in draft picks for him. Is Love really that type of player that can turn around a franchise and propel them into the NBA Finals?
Kevin Love, I personally love, pun intended. I really wanted him to be a Laker. I really did. I wanted the Lakers to get a high enough draft pick where they could have possibly said, okay, we have number 2, number 3 draft pick, and we're going to trade it to you in addition for Kevin Love. I would have loved to have seen him in an LA Laker uniform. In fact, my co-host on Sports Infusion had told me that if it actually happened and Kevin Love went to the Lakers, he would personally buy me my very first Kevin Love jersey. So I really wanted that just because I love seeing him spend money on me. And I really wanted the shirt because I wanted Love to go to the Lakers. That's obviously not going to happen. The Lakers don't have enough pieces or enough ammo right now to kind of deal with what the Timberwolves want. I think it's a risky move for the Warriors to make this deal for Kevin Love, only because, it puts them in the best trade available position, but the Nuggets are also reportedly interested themselves. I think that Kevin Love can help turn around a franchise that already has pieces in place. I obviously don't think he can do it by himself. He really doesn't have a very big defensive game, and for a lot of his game can be considered one-dimensional. You don't want to put him on a team where there's really not a lot of defense being played because he's really not going to play it. So I think that when you put him in a situation with the Warriors, I think it obviously would put, Golden State in the driver's seat as far as the Western Conference goes, and I do think he would make a big difference on that particular team.